Welcome to Think Tank, powered by Vodacom. The Springboks World Cup campaign has leveled out at cruising altitude, and we thought now would be a good time to switch off these seatbelt signs and just check if everybody's got any questions with the in-flight menu. One of the first questions we got was from Grant Nicol, a regular think tanker.
Chicken or the beef?
Chicken or beef? I think he's more of a beef kind of guy.
Okay.
And basically, he's picked up on a theme of the World Cup, which has been the Tier 2 nations improvement. He wants to know, is that because there's been a lack of respect from the Tier 1 guys, the heavyweights, or is it because, Tier 2 nations players are playing in top flight leagues? Or, and this is very unlikely, have World Rugby done enough to develop those guys?
Okay, well, World Rugby are not my favourite fellows in the world. They just go silent on such big issues. However, in this instance, I do think they have done some good.
Okay.
I think, unlike FIFA, the money that comes in via the World Cup every 4 years does, in fact, get channeled down to the little guys.
Right.
So I think they have made money available. But for me, there's four things that have happened that have closed the gap.
It's Heineken fever.
Shame, poor bugger, huh? He's caught on TV doing this. I'm about to do the same. Okay, one. These guys are playing in international leagues.
Right.
Georgia, even Japan, France, of course, but most of the people are playing in France.
Right.
So one, these guys are being tutored by coaches, and they're living amongst a professional sort of bunch of players. Two, conditioning. Even 4 years ago, they'd be completely amateur. You look at Namibia, that's a primarily amateur side,
Yep.
but they're still pretty well conditioned.
Yep.
So I think conditioning's improved immeasurably. Number three, New Zealand has infiltrated the coaching ranks.
Yeah.
That Fiji scrum, it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Kiwi scrum, a guy called Muir, scrum coach. Georgia is coached by a New Zealander, funded by a guy who's got too much money and doesn't know what to do with it.
Okay.
So I just think...
What's his number?
Yanni needs it. So I think there's been an infiltration, there's only so many teams in New Zealand these guys can coach. So there's been an infiltration of that kind of thinking internationally.
Yep.
And then the fourth is structured defense. And I think it's primarily by conditioning and coaching.
Yeah.
So these kind of things means that the gap has definitely, without doubt, got a whole lot closer.
Yeah.
I still think the minnow sides are losing, but with that kind of defence, it just brings the score down, palpably. And also, I think they've moved away from just spoiling rugby to actually playing some rugby.
Yeah.
So I think the gap has definitely got smaller, and for all the right reasons.
Yeah, I agree on all points there. I think the IP levels have definitely gone up with the minnows. IP is really available to all rugby nations now, and conditioning absolutely has improved. I think the teams that have been beaten, that we're talking about, aside from South Africa, are Samoa by Japan, and then obviously Tonga by
New Zealand?
No, Tonga by Georgia. Georgia beat Tonga. So what I'm saying is, Samoa and Tonga are two Pacific Island nations. The Pacific Island nations are renowned for not being the most organized. And I think in past times, just their brute physicality and athleticism has got them through games against minnows, where now, because the IP levels are up there, conditioning levels are up there, it's going to take more. Yeah,
completely. You throw in Fiji amongst that lot as well. And so now you can even include Australia. Okay, that by no means a minnow, although...
Well, that's the first, it's the first choice sport there, though. I mean, it's the bottom of the barrel athletes.
But so they've brought in Argentinian scrum guru, and now they can scrum, and now they're a contender.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the IP and in terms of a shared IP, I just think a lot more is shared, and exactly to your point, the general rugby IP has gone up like this, and therefore we're seeing a better standard of rugby all around.
Yeah. That brings us to our next question from Phil Frick. He wants to know, with the hard men like Louis de Jager, Dwayne Vermeulen, Schalk Burger, do we really need Willem Alberts as an enforcer?
Yeah, tough one. A couple of weeks ago, I would have thought, what's the point of asking that question? Because he's so key. But now there's so much doubt around his fitness. He's obviously come in with an injury. But I would say yes. The short answer is yes.
Yeah,
I'll mumble along for a little bit more. But, but there are obvious concerns around it. I just think, they should have played him against the USA, give him a 45 minutes, and if he can't make it, send him home.
Yeah.
And if you can, make him a vital part of it. But yeah, in essence, Alberts at his best is King Kong for the Boks.
Absolutely. So next question is from Fives Rugby, from Mark Viljoen. He wants to know, Adrian Strauss or Bismarck du Plessis to start at hooker for the Springboks. Who's our first choice guy?
Look, Busy's come in for a whole lot of stick, and rightfully so. He missed a jumper against Scotland. That grubber is out of control. He's coughed up the ball, but his positive stats are still pretty good. He's good at the turnover. He's a bustling big part of the Springbok game. I don't think he's as good off the bench as Strauss is. So for that reason alone, I would start with him. He's probably going to, Meyer that is, he's probably going to go with Jannie as his tight head. Jannie also plays better with his brother in the side, which is a little bit silly, as given the second best side in the world. But, to answer the question, Bismarck comes, at one stage was the best hooker in the world. He's going through, he's going through a bad patch. But, he is going to come good. So I would start him, and I think Strauss is very, very good off the bench.
Yeah. Do you agree on form, though? Strauss is probably the better hooker right now?
I would.
Yeah.
But as a lot of great coaches have said in the past, it's often not the best possible side that you select, but the side that works together in tandem.
Yeah.
But some psychologists said the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts, So, and I think that's the kind of thing that Meyer's going to have to look at in this situation.
Yeah. Next question is from Blunt Bodkin. Man wants to know, is Handré Pollard a 10 or a 12? Before you actually answer that question, I thought, I gave him a bit of stick for his goal kicking against Scotland. That was vastly improved and a big encouragement there.
Yeah, I must say, he put in the work. He was asked that question at one of the presses during the week, and he said, he put in the hours. And to his credit, he still said it, it wasn't quite where he wants it to be. So completely on the right track, and that's why I love that young man. He's just the future of Springbok rugby.
Yeah. He's
a hard grafter, he's well-spoken, presentable, but takes the ball to the line. I think the Springboks player might... Yeah, exactly. They play a great game with him at Fluff. Is he a 10 or a 12? Well, with Province Currie Cup coach John Jobson says the two are interchangeable. And, I agree. But to my mind, I would certainly have him at 10 above Lambie at the moment.
Speaking about the Springbok midfielders, that actually talks to your stat of the week.
Yeah, indeed. Something I picked up when doing the stats article on Sunday was that, look, it's difficult to be too critical of the box because they tick boxes. They've obviously picked a game plan and it's working for them. De Allende, 1 pass. Kriel, 0 passes.
Wow.
So it clearly speaks to the game plan, which is, doesn't get much past 10.
Yeah.
And when Kriel gets the ball, he's certainly not going to be passing.
Tuck and run.
Yeah, he only gets it 2-3 times a game and he's going to try and do something.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit sad because he's an enormously creative player. So I just think it speaks to the game that Meyer's chosen, and I think it's probably the right choice. If it's slightly boring, probably speaks to your Grinch.
Yes, please.
You're winning, loving it. But if every now and then it'd be quite nice to get Kriel in space, he could offload to Habana, know. But I think those two stats just speak to exactly the plan that the Boks have chosen.
Well, Joe Public seems to agree with you. Jesse Kriel, everybody thought was a fan favourite. He only got rated 6.6 on that game on our Bok ratings, which is the second lowest amongst Joe Public's ratings. And, that talks to exactly your point.
Yeah, it does. And he just didn't get the ball. But it's interesting to see out the expert ratings, where sadly, Jannie came in for a lot of stick.
Never.
3 of them, Breyten, Rob Lowe, Corne, all gave him the lowest ratings.
Those guys know their titles.
I spared the man and I gave it to his brother Bismarck. Because, Bismarck, as I said, Bismarck had some positive stats, but he just did a whole lot of silly things.
Yeah.
So it was 3 to Jannie and 1 to Bismarck in terms of lows.
Right.
In terms of highs, that was quite interesting. So Damon de Allende for both Breyten and Corne got the highest rating. Frieda Pre was up there with Corne and myself.
Yep.
And then Lotte Jager,
good choice.
Breyten and myself. And then Skalkberger, Rob Lowe. But he's obviously an ex-flank. He's playing golf with his old man.
Long blonde hair, come on.
Discount him.
Bias.
Yeah, for me it was about the 2 locks, I think, and then Fourie has been the catalyst.
Let's have some knuckles. Good game. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. That's it for this week. Please be sure to keep the questions rolling in. We'll try and get to as many as we can in the future. Use the hashtag ThinkTank and check out vodacomrugby.coza. Until next time, ciao.